Hi,
Hi,
good
good
morning.
morning.
I'm Ankush
Please
Srivastava.
introduce yourself.
I have done my MBA in Finance and Marketing.
I would like to know something about your work experience.
I basically have started my
What you have
career
done
as
in your
a
career so far?
manager
Maybe if you
sales
can just take me through a
in
brief.
XYZ Bank, and presently I'm the zonal sales manager. And I have
If I may ask you,
2 years of
what
experience in
exactly are your
distributed
achievements in life?
and
Why do you think
multi-channel
you are
sales
really
handling.
fit for this position?
And I think I would be really experienced for this position. I think I have
Just
handled a
because of
lot of
that?
international customer, so I think I would be appropriate for this job.
I don't think so.
I have a lot of achievements in that.
Why do you think you should be
I think
selected
I
for
should
this job?
be the one who can fulfill all your company's aspirations, and I can really bring the ROI for your company.
Okay.
I
And
think I
why
would
do
be
you
able to
think
do that
you
because
should be
I'm
the one
really an
who
experienced
actually be
person,
able to fulfill
and I
our
have got
expectations?
solid experience in international market, and I think for that reason you should hire me.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. We'll let you know in case if you are selected.
Thank
Have
you,
a
sir.
nice day. Bye bye.
Have a great day.
What's your name?
Hi, sir.
Tell me
Good
something about
morning.
yourself.
I'm Shrikant. I'm
So,
Shrikant
why
Bhatt.
you exactly want to come here?
I've done my MBA in marketing.
What exactly is your future
Well,
plan?
I'm looking for a company where exactly I can explore my career as a marketing professional. I would really use my skill sets to help the organization meet its goals and business vision. And at the same time, I would like to align my professional career growth with the organization objectives. Of course, it would be my ultimate desire how I can help the organization meet the business satisfaction and at the same time satisfy the customer, because I believe if I can delight the customers, I would be automatically able to fulfill my objectives as well.
Would you like to see yourself grow with the organization?
Yeah, of course. I definitely would like to see myself growing with the organization, and my short term goal would be to see how I can really fulfill my KRAs and how I can exactly become at least that much experience that I can take on more responsibilities in helping the organization fulfill its objective, and at the same time I can also see myself growing to a level where I can feel that I have the leadership qualities which will help the organization
What
in the
is the
future.
importance of communication?
I think communication is really important because how we really establish the relation with the customer. For that, one should have a good understanding of the
Okay.
customer's requirement, and for that, we must need to customer. We need to understand the customer's problem, and when we can communicate
Your
the
time.
same to the customer, it is
If you are
easier.
shortlisted, we'll let you know.
Yes, sir.
We have
Thank you, sir.
definitely liked your way of presentation.
Nice meeting you, sir. Bye bye. Bye bye.
We all want to communicate well, and that is why we always try to study more on developing our communication skill. Across the world, in every sphere, people always try to measure the success by how well you communicate, whether you are a student, professional, or a business person. But you have to understand that communication is basically an important parameter of your success. Most of the time, people always mistake by thinking that if somebody can talk, that means he can communicate well. But it's always not the thing. It has been seen that just by mere expressing your feeling is not what exactly you can always understand to be communication. A good communication should always understand that how exactly you encode your message and how you decode the message, and how in that process you get the feedback and how well you understand the feedback. So it is always not necessary that what you said is what is being heard. Sometimes people do not understand the intentions, and people are always listening just with the intention to reply, but not to understand what you are saying. So, next time when you communicate, it is important to understand the background, objective, and motivation of the person to whom you are communicating. Communication is an art which is always an important thing which we can learn. It's not that something is born perfect, but we have to make sure that how we can condition ourselves to become a good communicator by keeping ourselves into good communication, into good association, which will help us to enhance our communication skill. Most of the time in my entire career, I have seen that people always are in a hurry to say something or express their mind. Generally, people always think that I want to speak and I want to say something, but people forget that what exactly people want to listen from you. And that is perhaps even in one of the best book I have read, that it is always understanding the need of people and understanding their requirement. If you fail to understand the requirement of others, you cannot really make them satisfied. Most of the relationships, when we are trying to build, it actually builds with a good communication. How well we understand each other. It's not always something which you say. Sometimes, without even saying, we can communicate, and that is what is actually non-verbal communication. Whether it's a business relation or whether it's a personal relation, relationship always stands on good communication, and a good communication stands on good understanding and good use of your words, how carefully you can use the words, because sometimes the spoken words cannot come back like those bullets once shot from the gun. So you have to be very careful with the words, the timing, and of course, how you can synchronize your communication with that particular momentum or that situation so that it makes the right impact. And also it is important to understand that what people want to listen from you. Most of the time, I've seen that speakers are always in a hurry to share their thoughts, but they forget that what exactly the audience wants to listen from them. So next time, when you are trying to negotiate for your requirement, or it's going to be a deal which you are going to close, you have to make sure that you are a powerful communicator or not. And in order to become a powerful communicator, we have today a very interesting session on how to become a powerful communicator. And for this, we have our guest speakers, our guest panelists who are going to share their insights and knowledge to tell us how to really become a powerful communicator in life. So without delaying further, let's join into the topic and let's see what they have to say. Hi, we are back once again for one more interesting episode of PMA. This PMA webinar is really catching up. I'm really happy to all my audiences and my followers who are really coming up with more and more requests. And this particular session today is going to be very much interesting, and this is on public demand, on audience demand. This is something which is core of all success story. So if you really are interested about developing yourself, and if you have ever thought that what exactly is really required to become successful in life, this webinar is going to be the game changer for you. So without making a lot of stories, let's come to the point and tell you what exactly we have in store for you. This is something communication, friends, and we all want to develop our communication. We all want to sharpen our communication. Wait, are we really talking about just talking, or we are just talking about communication? So I think that's also a confusion among most of us. We feel that if somebody is talking, he can communicate. So we are going to learn all these things today from our experts. Our guest speakers are here. They are really very knowledgeable people in their profession, and they have a lot of tips and tricks for us. We're going to learn from them, and we're going to understand that what exactly it takes to become a powerful communicator. We know that relationships, we know that whatever we talk about in the society all depends on communication. And how successful you are in your communication, that really matters how successful you would be in your life, in your profession, or in your social identity. So I think today we are going to learn about communication and why communication matters. So in the very first place, we have to first of all understand that what exactly it takes to become a good communicator. And then we should also try to understand from our guest speakers today that how to become a powerful communicator. Because we might be an entrepreneur, we might be an employee, we could be a business person, but sometime or the other, maybe some of you have felt that you are not that strong in your communication or you are just very soft spoken. But what exactly is really required to make you a powerful communicator? What is really required to make you a negotiator? What is really required to give you the edge on every deal you close? And for that, this session you must watch. And I'm sure those who basically would be watching this session after this webinar, those who are perhaps not able to connect, they would definitely have some sure takeaway from this webinar. So without doing a lot of formalities and story making, I just want to come back to our guest speaker introduction. So in an order, we would basically start with our panel today. We have Mr. Arnab Boral, who is basically a facilitator, trainer, and a celebrated motivator who's basically been to almost all the parts of the country. He's one of the corporate guy who basically has worked in Infosys for a long time, which is one of the leading IT companies. And now he's a motivator. He's basically also a YouTuber. He's doing a lot of good YouTube videos. I am personally also a subscriber of his channel. So I think we're going to learn so much from Mr. Arnab Boral on communication. Hi, Mr. Arnab. If you can say hi to us.
Okay. Hi, hello. Hello.
We have Mr. Michael De Freitas. Michael is definitely new in our webinar, but Michael is a good friend of mine. He's like my younger brother. I Michael to this show. Michael has been one of the avid follower of my channels. And since we have met, we have discussed a lot and our interests are common. Michael is a very senior HR professional and a legal expert. He works for a very premier institution known as Robert Walters. In fact, I am also associated with him in some of the business reasons with Michael, but now we are good friends. And we also want to know that how exactly Michael is going to help us in bringing his inputs as an HR person, as a legal expert, how he sees communication and what exactly are the quintessential things are important to become a powerful communicator. Would definitely love to learn from Michael. Similarly, we have Mr. Sanjit Basu. Mr. Sanjit Basu is, as usual, a very generous contributor for this webinar. Thank you, sir, for your support, as usual. He's a Maverick trainer, as I used to say, a long background in training. And he's the man probably in this session today who is one of the, the greatest, the speakers who basically has been speaking in several universities. He has been going to corporate session. And he also has a signature program called as Public Speaking Forum. So he has his own academy, which mainly helps young toddlers to become a good public speaker. And for the last 4 or 5 years, he's doing a wonderful job in the North Bengal, where he's helping a lot of toddlers, a lot of institutions to develop their public speaking. That is really recommended for the schools. And I'm sure we will be recommending this thing. And I'm so happy that Mr. Basu will be available for making his point today. We'll listen to you, Mr. Basu. Mr. Basu, if you could say hi, because...
Yeah, hi. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We have Mr. Joshi with us, who is basically a very veteran, experienced, and an absorbed professional, because he is a kind of a person who has got an amalgamation of experience. He's an HR, he's a trainer, he's into healthcare, he is into so many industries. So he is like a mixture of so many talent. So if I use some adjectives for him, it might be less for like explaining him or describing him. So Mr. Vivek Joshi is with us. who has worked with some companies like Ranbaxy, which is one of the leading pharmaceutical company, which everybody is aware of. Of course, he has worked with some other HR forums. And I have also become a good friend of Mr. Joshi during one of such sessions. And since our interests are common, so I would really request also Mr. Joshi to make his point today. And I'm sure I've seen his blasting and fairy sessions on communication, and I'm sure today we are going to get a flavor of that. So without taking much time and making more of a story, of course, there is a story. And that story we want to listen and we want to enjoy. So let us start our journey. And as usual, I would really request in an alphabetical order, Mr. Arnab Boral to charge up the floor with his fairy and his charging communication. All yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Das. Thank you. The first thing is I would probably want to kind of get ahead and introduce the topic first, which talks about how to be a good communicator. Now, before we get into how to be a good communicator, what we need to understand is what do we actually mean by a communicator? And like you mentioned earlier, what involves communication? What exactly is communication? Now, communication, most often, what we think is, its perceptions are that communication basically is that people actually tell me. I mean, I have faced this personally, where people actually say, I cannot communicate, I cannot speak to other people. That is not the limitation of communication. Most often, the limitation of communication starts with not being able to listen. We think that being able to say what we are trying to say is what communication is about. However, what communication actually involves is reaction to what somebody is telling me. Now, here's the thing. When we talk about the listening activity as a communication piece, the main problem is that our brain from our childhood works in a different way. What it does is as soon as somebody starts speaking to me, I start thinking, and it happens with everybody, okay? I start thinking of what are the similar situations that happened in my life in the past that he's talking about now. And because I am thinking of something else, there are bits of information that he's talking to me about that I'm missing out on. Effectively, when I respond back to him, when I respond to his communication, I have actually not received some of the pointers that he says to me. So here is the primary drop out of the communication. So the first thing is when we listen, we need to listen without judgment, without responding or even thinking of responding. Listen to the whole thing and then create your response. That's the first thing. So effectively, when you communicate, the first thing that you need to do is listen well. The next thing has to be, you have to know your message. You have to know your message. You have to know your audience. And most importantly, you have to know the reason or the aim of communicating. Why am I communicating? What am I trying to achieve out of communicating to this group or this person? Right? But that understanding is very important. But again, going back, before that, what is most important is listening actively. The third would be being empathetic. Mm-hmm. Now, empathy, how do I define empathy? Empathy is primarily, well, people sometimes relate it to sympathy, which it is not. So empathy primarily is standing in the other person's shoes or understanding what, let's say, when Premankur Das is speaking to me, I try and understand from Premankur Das's perspective, not from Arnab Boral's perspective. That's important. Because his perspective, it's like the U and N, right? When I look at it, it might be a U to me. When he looks at it on the same piece of paper, it would look like an N to him, right? So, which is why whenever you communicate, you have to stand on the other side and try and understand why is he saying this to me? What are the scenarios that he has faced which is making him say this to me? And my reaction will be based on not just what he said, but on the situation that he said it from. Which is why the next point comes in, pay attention to the non-verbal cues. There are situations when I would probably say, you know what I mean, and I'm probably trying to generate, I'm trying to create something. I might be lying or I do not have much to say. I'm actually gathering information from my surroundings and saying. So the body language says it all. So you have to be very careful when somebody speaks to you. You have to be not just careful about what he's saying, but also the way he's saying, the tone that he's talking in, the way his body is reacting when he's speaking. And not just that, when you speak, it's very important. So there are a lot of people I have seen who get onto stage. They're good speakers. They get onto stage, they hold on to the podium and speak straight into the mic. After a certain time, they're very powerful speaker. But the problem is, after a while, the audience starts getting sleepy. Why? Because there's no movement. My ears are working. As a listener, my ears are working, but my eyes are looking at one person who's standing straight. Effectively, what happens is my eyes start getting drowsy. So most important is, very, very important is your body should speak along with your voice. So the body, that's very important. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues and involve your nonverbal cues. And there's the next one, which is, don't get offended, anybody. I call it KISS, KISS. Keep it short and sweet. No exaggerations, no spreading it beyond.
I think you have gone on mute.
I have lost him there. His communication may have stopped for a second.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're back. Please
Now
go.
we can, yes.
Awesome. So when you are offered wafers, how do you like your wafers? Like your wafers crispy, right? And because you like them crispy, communications should actually be like that, crispy. And when you like your wafers crispy, they finish off very fast. Your communication should finish off crispy and fast. Quick, yummy. That's how it should be. Pause when required, prepare your messages, and practice before you get to the speech. Well, there would be a point of time, initial phases, if you keep practicing for like 20 times, probably the 21st time you don't even need to prepare, because you will walk up to stage, they will give you a topic and you'll just start off, right? So but the initial phases, that preparation is required. So be prepared, jot down points that these are the points I need to cover. Do some study on those points, have your points in order, and present them. So here's probably a couple of more points I would love to say. One is, be appreciative of people when people offer you feedback, and be polite. That's very, very important. I would probably put it back to Mr. Das and come back later, because that's going to be, if I continue, it's going to go on forever. Mr. Das, over to you.
Yeah, I know it's such an intriguing topic, and then it would be, of course, tempting all our speakers to get into a flow, because that is something very close and dear to all of us. So I basically would request maybe Mr. Vivek to come and share certain insights on this. But then I just want to throw a question, as Arnab has already set the basics, and he already highlighted that it requires to have a balance of a verbal and non-verbal communication, and to understand the background, objective, and motivation. So what exactly do you think, like how would you classify from a layman's point of view? Because of course, when a communication expert is speaking, he can say all these things, but when we are trying to understand from a layman's point of view, how exactly they really approach for communication and how it should be. When we talk about, say, interpersonal communication, when you talk about how you communicate to the exterior world, and what exactly the external one should understand from you. So what it goes in a person's mind. So is it like we first start with an interpersonal skill with ourselves, and then we go to the exterior world? So if you can say more on that, Mr. Joshi.
Thank you, Premankar. But you are going back to the word. The promise was you'll go alphabetically. So I was supposed to come. So I was supposed to come to the last, but that's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's fair
Right.
enough. That's fair enough. No issues on that.
No
That's
worries.
that's a gap
I
of
thought I
communication. That's a gap of communication.
what, Arnav?
I'm saying that's a gap in communication.
Yeah.
See, I really thought I can relax for maybe 10-15 minutes, but he has thrown the gauntlet right at me now. Fair enough. That's what Premankur that I know of. Great. Say two things, Premankur, right? Um, uh, in simple words, see, the way I look at it, communication is very simple, right? If I say something to somebody and he understands, communication is complete, right? Language is of no use, your actions are of no use. As long as I'm able to make someone understand what I want him to do or what he wants me to do, I guess communication is done,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
this is how
Absolutely.
I look at it. Now, developing further from what Arnav was saying, right? Because see, what Arnav was talking about is a very, what you call, when we really go into the communication depths, we need to understand how much is the importance of a verbal communication, how much is the importance of a body language. So long back, this study was done by Mehrabian, where he talked about whenever we communicate, just 7% is verbal communication, 38% is
Absolutely.
style, and 55% is body language. So frankly, if you really look at it, when you talk about non-verbal cues, when you talk about body language, I guess what you need to look for is, and the mistake that we do is, we try to listen, because listening is very important. We try to listen only with our ears. Whereas almost 93% of our listening has to be done with our eyes. I guess this is where sometimes we go wrong. And this is the essence of any communication, any active thing that we want to do, that we need to listen with our eyes. Because the words can be same. Somebody might say, I ask somebody, how are you feeling? I'm great. And somebody says, oh, just great. It means entirely different thing. And I'm not even talking about the tone, the pitch, the pace. I'm talking about just plain listening with your eyes, looking at the things.
Exactly.
And if I talk about it from the perspective of, see, I have a psychology background. Once I decided that I want to come into HR and facilitation, I thought I must do my master's in psychology also. If I look at it from the point of view of neuro-linguistic programming, I guess it's very, very important. There is nothing more important in communication than body language. What you do with your hands, what you do with your eyes, what you do with your lips, what you do with your face, where you are touching when you're talking. It's very, very important. And psychology says that everybody is born with a psychic gift. The issue is whether we develop on the psychic gift or we don't develop on the psychic gift. And one of the most important psychic gift is empathy. Everybody is born with it.
Yeah.
It is up to us to develop on that. And once we develop on empathy, once we understand what Michael is thinking, what Premankur is thinking, what Arnab is thinking, what Sanjeet is thinking, I guess the job is done. Because now what you do is you trace your communication as per to the person who is there in front of you. I guess for me, that is the essence of communication.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vivek. I would just come back to you, sir. I would ask Mr. Michael to start with his presentation. And maybe if you could just give a brief intro to the audience. We also have one viewer here today, Julio. Julio, if you could also introduce, you are new to the session. Okay. So in the meantime, Michael, if you can just go ahead.
Sure, by way of introduction, my name is Michael De Freitas. I studied law here in South Africa, did my 2 years of internship where in order to qualify as a lawyer here in South Africa, in order to become one, I've done that time. I'm currently going underway with the application to the court to be admitted officially with a tick next to my name saying I am an attorney in our country. Besides that, I, for the last year and a bit, been doing legal recruitment. I left the legal practice, the beast of legal practice, to go into something where I had a lot more engagement with people. And most of my days consist of meetings like this where I engage with people on mostly one-on-ones. But I get to utilize something that has been what I believe a gift from God himself, that I'm more of an extrovert. I love to engage with people, and more so than most others that I've met in my life. And yeah, I'm here to I wanted to just jump on one or two things that you gentlemen mentioned, if I can just jump straight to it for the sake of keeping the conversation lively and a bit more engaging here with one another. I want to share a quick story. You guys were chatting just a bit about, when you speak to someone and you're identifying their body language and how they are reacting. I remember I once met this beautiful Portuguese girl with long brown hair. And I was, trying to sell myself, trying to pitch myself to her to try and, get her attention. And whilst talking to her, telling her about, yes, I'm studying law and I'm a football player, just going through all of this, trying to transfer this information to her. So how many times I could maybe count on my two hands how many times she picked up her cell phone and looked at her phone, looked at me, looked at her phone, did this because with her eyes. So she wasn't saying stop talking, but her whole entire body was saying, please shut up, you're talking so much. And, just fundamentally being able to identify, when that happened in hindsight, a little while later, I went and watched some videos online in self-development, and they'd mentioned, learning how to identify certain types of body language of an individual whilst they're listening to you, to see whether you still have your audience. And just looking back on that time, I could have done a bit better. And I like to think maybe now going forward, I ask more questions, I'm a bit more quiet, and it gives me a better chance of maybe, sealing a date, to go out for a coffee or an ice cream. But what I'm trying to say here is that, one thing that I've identified that Mr. Arnab was mentioning was the just the body language of an individual, how important that is. If I can continue, another instance is last week, on Sunday, I was at a Portuguese event. I'm involved in a non-profit, and I was speaking on stage. I had a speech that I had to give because I'm running that non-profit alongside some other incredible people. And Mr. Das actually saw the video and he gave me some lovely compliments. And I thought, wow, I'm a great speaker. Mr. Joshua is busy mentioning here, I believe it was you that mentioned that you could be speaking, and because you're not moving, you're only speaking and people are only listening. That's only 7% of their body that is actually absorbing what you are saying. And I stood still. I was like this, speaking, not because I'm a bad speaker, but because I hadn't memorized and learned information well enough to be able to walk and freely speak and engage and use other tools that I have available to me, like my hands, to actually engage with the audience, maybe walk around a bit, give someone a high five, and keep people interested. You could hear people talking and, doing their own thing. And yeah, well, that's that I learned here already just in the first 10 minutes of this conversation. So thank you guys so much. It's so great to receive information and, continue to empower ourselves. If I could lastly just address one other thing, which is dealing just a bit with, maybe we could shift and just discuss why people do struggle to communicate. One thing is that I want to mention here is that lack of confidence in themselves. If we can just be real, and I could give a list of 10 different things that Google could give you on what, why people struggle, but something that I've seen a lot of is people ask me all the time, Michael, why do you seem like a fish in water? You love talking. You can talk to someone in the elevator. I love to stay in the elevator, go up to our office and just engage with whoever's in the lift about anything and everything, but others can't. And often they speak so negatively about themselves. They say, no, I could never do this. I don't speak in front of people. I hate public speaking. You hear all those key words, hate, I can't. When in reality, there are more than one form of communication, not me speaking here, but perhaps writing, perhaps video, audio, finding where your craft is and how you are able to get your information transferred to someone else, and believing in yourself more. Really, I think if we can just look at that one fundamental point to start with, or getting into the courses and learning. There's great courses like Mr. Arnab is offering. He's a great trainer, and I think Sanjeet, it's you that you're offering the you help a lot of people with this kind of thing, and but yeah, I think from the fundamental points, people need to remind themselves here that you can be better at something, and if you set your mind to it and set reasonable goals for yourself and apply yourself, test yourself, record yourself speaking. Often I watch a video of myself speaking and I'm like, wow, I could have done X, Y, and Z a lot better. Not because I'm hard on myself, but I want to do better. And being able to identify that by putting it out in front of you, become the audience of your own speech or whatever form of communication you're trying to engage with, whether it be an article you're reading that you wrote. If you wrote an article and halfway through you're thinking of something else, you got to work on your article. But doing more speaking, more communication like this, for me, more webinars. I've only done a handful in my life when I think I'm a relatively good speaker. But maybe by the 100th one or the 200th webinar, I'll be a great speaker, I'm sure, because of putting into practice, like Mr. Joshi mentioned, engaging more with by doing more of the craft, you evolve and you engage with it a lot more. So yeah, this is my 2 cents thus far. I hope to give a bit more input shortly. Let me share the floor.
Yeah, we would just take the flow further. Thank you, Michael, for sharing such a nice experience. And I just want to come to Mr. Sanjit now. Mr. Sanjit, like you have been speaking for almost now more than 2 decades, and you have been representing several forums. You were a regular speaker. So I want to know from you, Mr. Sanjit, how important it is like to go with a preparation or go unprepared. Like just now, our friend Mr. Michael has shared that how was his experience, maybe the initial experience when he was trying to sell him or express him in a date and it didn't go well. But now he's more experienced. I'm sure like now all his experiences are better. So of course, we'd come back to you knowing that. So how exactly do you think as a speaker one should prepare? And what is really the importance of visualizing before even if you go to communicate with the forum? So how do you visualize yourself as a speaker or as a communicator, like you are going to represent or you're going to present yourself in front of an interview board, or you're going to speak to some of your client, or you're going to speak in front of an audience? So how do you really prepare yourself? So what is your take on that? If Mr. Sanjit, if you can come on this.
Okay, greetings to all, and thank you, Mr. Premakudas, for bringing me again. So as you put me that question, how important to prepare yourself when you go for any kind of communication. So there is a very good quotation that is if you fail to prepare to fail. Okay, so if you are not preparing yourself to be a good communicator, then definitely you are going to fail when the time will come to communicate well. Now, before I talk this aspect on, before I discuss this aspect of preparation, let me share a little bit about the communication. That what is communication is all about. Communication is not the only that speaking. Most of the people, they think if somebody can speak well, then he is a very good communicator. But it is a very wrong conception. Communication is a two-way process. It's a two-way process, two-way channel. You send some message and you accept some message, and in between you have the feedback, you have some barriers. So overcoming all these challenge, and if you can do it effectively, then you are a very good communicator. If you can get the feedback well, if you can minimize barrier, there could be a lot of barriers in between, and if you can solve all this problem, then you are a very good communicator. So as Mr. Vivek Joshi told that, language is not the problem. The problem, maximum time we communicate with our body. So Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he said that we listen with an intent to give the reply.
Correct. Correct.
So
that's exactly what I was talking about. Listening with the intent to reply, not to understand. Very
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So most of the times, what happens whenever we start, listening, we start thinking about, what the reply I'm going to give. So
correct.
and you just shift yourself from the listening. You start thinking about the reply, that the answer what you are going to give, and there we lack listening. So listening
absolutely.
is very
your listening reception goes down and your thinking goes high.
Yes, exactly. So now you start
very perfect.
and then you start, having some barrier in between, and you cannot, communicate well. So that is the biggest, problem that happens when we communicate. So when communicating, one has to be 100% in the moment, that what he is saying or she is saying. Listen it very carefully, try to understand, and when that person stops, only then you start speaking. But most of the time, what happens? We just, cut him short or cut us short, and we just try to speak. So this is the biggest problem most of us faces. So if somebody wants to be a good communicator, he or she has to prepare all these things, that how I am going to speak or how I am going to interact. And if he does all these things, then he could be, he would be a very good communicator.
I guess that could also involve how I will react. That also, Mr. Sajid?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Reaction. Reaction is again,
For example,
very.
For example, I cut you in between, but I interacted with you, and I then let you talk again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is, this is a very good way of communication. And one thing again, I would like to say, to be a good communicator, one has to communicate. If you think that, by reading some books, by watching some YouTube videos, and I can become a very good communicator, this is not going to happen. So
that will never happen.
Yeah, most of us, what we do, we read few books on communication, we watch few videos on communication, and then we think, okay, no, I'm a very good communicator, and now I can go on any stage, on any and I can communicate. And then they face the challenge, they face the reality, that what is communication? Communication, if somebody wants to be a good communicator, he has to come in this like of forum, on stage or maybe virtually, and start speaking. And here,
absolutely,
there could be a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, a lot of failures. And if that person consistently does this, there would be a time he would become a very good communicator, and he can influence people, he can motivate people, he can inform, and he can, do all this stuff. So for that, preparation is the key.
Absolutely.
One has to prepare, thoroughly, that how his body language would be, the tone of voice. Tone of voice, again, very, very important. It is not that what you say, but how you say. That is very, very important.
Well, absolutely.
Your tone of voice, your articulation, your intonation. So all this stuff is very, very important. And for that, one has to practice. So, and I always believe that practice makes a man perfect. But one thing is that practice makes only permanent. Whatever you practice, it becomes permanent. So if you practice in a wrong way, it will become wrong.
The wrong thing will become permanent. Correct.
Exactly. So your way of practice, how you practice, this is very, very important. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful comment and wonderful statements. I'm sure this is something which is very important for the audience who are following. So I just want to carry on with your powerful statement which you've made, that the right practice can only make us perfect. And as in tune with our topic today, we basically not only want to be a good communicator, but also a powerful communicator. That is what exactly is really the demand. People want to know that how to enthuse the power, how to bring the power. So I just go back to the powerful man, Mr. Arnab, with a powerful voice. What exactly you do to bring the power?
Well, I would probably start with something that Michael mentioned when he was talking. He particularly mentioned something about where he was looking when he was speaking in public. Now, this is something which is extremely important. Now, let's say, for example, when you stand in front of a person and speak to that one person, it is always great. The best way to interact with that person is by looking into his or her eyes, right? Even if you are confessing your love to a lady, or a lady is confessing a love to a gentleman, or whatever, you are probably talking about an official thing with a colleague, the best way to talk about it is looking in the eyes, which basically shows that you are being straight, you are being honest, you are being practical, right? Now, what most public speakers or first time speakers, when they get onto stage, they have actually had this, object or rather fear factor. And they've asked me, there have been scenarios where they've asked me, when I'm getting onto stage, there are 2,000 people sitting in front of me, or maybe 50 people sitting in front of me in a classroom. Who do I look at? Right? So here's the thing. If you look at one person constantly, your head will be like, Michael was saying, I'm looking straight at something or somebody and I'm speaking. Effectively, what would happen is the rest of the people will fall asleep, or they will eventually start scratching their head. There will be other discussions really going on while you speak, etc. However, what you need to do here to be a powerful communicator is walk around. The more free you get. So here's what I do. I mean, I have been into public speaking for about 15, 20 odd years. Now, what I do most often is, as soon as I get into a public speaking setup where I'm speaking, I'm going to be training, the first thing I notice is most of the times the chairs, the tables are set up in such a way that I am in front and the people are ganging up on the other side facing me, which is towards the board. Maybe a display board, maybe towards the screen, whatever. Now, the first thing I do is I spread them all around. I spread them all around so that I have enough space to walk around in between. The more you get closer to them, the more you connect with them, it's easier to talk. Now you turn around and walk back. Maybe you are saying that I'm fake. It is very often said when you're on stage, you don't show your back to the public, right? This is a very common saying that we say when we get onto stage. But when you're doing it this way, when you're getting into the crowd, it doesn't matter whether you're showing your back to them because you are walking around. So people know that you are talking to each one among them. And every time you turn, you're having one-on-one eye contacts with each of them.
Here I have a question. Here I have a question. Like, of course, this is an experience, like, from a trainer's perspective, from a speaker's perspective, you are definitely giving that. How exactly, like someone who is going to have a speech with his boss, someone who is going to make his point in front of, like maybe his customer. So it's a one-on-one kind of a situation.
Absolutely.
Maybe the kind of situation which Michael has just narrated. So you are going to propose your, the would-be. So you don't know how exactly, how to regain the confidence. Your knees are shaking and your confidence is going down. And
your knees might shake, but you
how to do these things. So I think that is something also important. So,
absolutely. I'm coming to that. So that's the public speaking that I was talking about.
Okay.
But when you want to be talking one-on-one, maybe you're proposing to your girlfriend, or you want to talk to your boss about a problem that you have been facing.
Or you said that I'm going to ask for a raise. I'm asking for a raise.
I'm going to ask for a raise. Okay, excellent. Now, the first thing is you have to jot down the points that you have to present to him to be able to ask for a raise. I think Sanjeev mentioned it very clearly that you have to have a proper point by point
preparation.
Jot down preparation before you get to that conversation. So that needs to be done, like Sanjeev said. So, people like us, I would probably need to carry a pen and pad, but I would probably have it in my head. But yes, I mean, somebody who's doing it for the first time, you should probably have a pen and paper, write it down, keep it in front of you. I'm not saying read it out. I'm saying jot down the points that you want to cover. And now, before you get to the speech, each of these points, you build your paragraphs around these points. When you get to the speech, you look at the points and you speak about it. Now, you have these rest of the paragraphs in your mind. You can still build and deliver. But you have the points that you know that these are necessary that I need to cover. Right. So that's very important.
I would so here's Joshi sir. I would go to Joshi sir, who is actually giving a soft smile. It means that there is some spark is in his mind. So yes, Mr. Joshi.
See, Premankar, yes. See, I have some tips for chronologically young people like Michael, right?
Yeah.
And so that whenever they are going out and whenever they are proposing to somebody, I can give some foolproof methods
Okay,
how they
please, sir.
cannot fail. Because see, young
All
guys
ears.
are the most
Go
apt
ahead.
for doing these things, right? And Michael, based upon my experience, my gray hairs, right, and whatever knowledge that I have, of course, preparation is very important, right? Being a subject matter expert, even if when you are proposing or asking for a raise, being a subject matter expert is very, very important because people always like to listen on to experts.
Mm.
Correct.
My boss once used to
Correct.
say, if somebody talks sense, I listen. When somebody
Yeah.
talks nonsense,
Absolutely.
I shut down. When somebody talks bullshit,
Absolutely.
I get angry.
Yes.
Correct.
True.
Right. So
Very important.
it's
Very
very, very
important.
important. Preparation is very important. You need to be a subject matter expert. And
Mm.
whether you're asking for a raise or proposing to a girl, the second most important thing is no self doubt. I'm the best
Absolutely.
for you.
I was wanting to
I'm the
come to that.
best for you.
Mm.
If
Absolutely.
you doubt yourself, Michael, that you are not the best, then I'm sure she's going to look at her mobile and walk away.
Yeah.
Or she will look for another one, not you. Or she will look for another one, not you.
Yeah. Third thing is, whether on a raise or proposing, you practice calming trips. Never
Absolutely.
ever talk with shallow breaths.
Right.
Always talk with deep breaths. I'm not saying that you stop speaking and start taking deep breaths. What I'm saying is, whatever you are speaking, you speak always ensuring that your lungs are getting proper oxygen. Because if your lungs are getting proper oxygen, believe me, you will have calming hormones, you will have dopamine, you will
Calm.
have
Correct.
serotonin.
Wow.
Dopamine, serotonin,
Absolutely.
endorphin, the balance of these three is very, very important. If you don't take deep breaths, if you do shallow breathing, what will happen is your brain will be full of cortisol and adrenaline. So what's going to happen is it's
Okay.
going to be fight or fright. So you might even
But
run away.
Vivekji, if I may probably put it here, that
Yeah,
like you mentioned that the short breaths that you were talking about, the short breaths that you were talking about, that usually happens when people get scared, right?
exactly.
So it exactly. So which is why the people who are first time going to be speaking in public, that short breaths might be a
Exactly.
stage that they face before they get onto the stage. So the thing is that how does he need to
Overcome.
overcome that short breath
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So that long breath you take, and like when we speak, we don't even take short breaks or long breaks. We normal breathe
Exactly.
normally. I am
Exactly.
speaking, I don't even, it just goes on. It's a flow because
Exactly.
I'm interacting. So
Yeah.
the perception
Exactly.
it needs to be not like I'm delivering a speech, but it
Mhm.
needs to be more of I'm having an interaction.
True. 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 And
Okay.
and
Here,
one
Oh,
here
one more thing.
just interrupting. I'm just
Yeah,
interrupting.
please.
Here I want to mention one thing is that being in the moment, when you are going to talk with somebody, maybe one to one or maybe public speaking, one thing I learned from the experts, that is being in the moment, and how you can be in the moment is that saying some tongue twister. So saying some tongue twister, it also keep you in the moment. You cannot think something else when you are speak. Okay, so this is very very
but,
one good exercise. A very good
possibly.
exercise that you
Never
can
tried.
be in the moment. Say
I
some tongue
think
twister.
Remankur.
I think this is
Remankur.
really
Remankur.
interesting. But I would also give
Remankur.
the Mr. Joshi. Please
Just one
come
more
on.
point. Just one more point. See,
Yeah.
I need to complete the cycle for Michael.
Sure.
Can you
Sure.
believe?
Sure. Sure.
Please.
So I was talking about preparation. I was
Now
talking
that's
about
called good communication.
I was,
That's called good communication. When you say, I need to complete
because
the
see, I
cycle
have,
with my dog.
see, if I'm giving getting tips to somebody, I have to complete the cycle.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, please.
Please.
See, apart from practicing calming tips, see, from my psychology background, what I can talk about is there is something known as cognitive behavior therapy. It's
Mm.
Right.
it's a cycle, right? Your
Correct.
thoughts, whatever are your thoughts, they are going to make your feelings. If you have positive thoughts, positive feelings. If you have
Yeah.
positive
Yeah.
feelings,
Correct.
positive action. Positive action,
Correct.
positive behavior. And
Positive.
positive behavior
Correct.
again is going to strengthen your positive thoughts. So
Correct.
whether you are going to ask for a raise or going to propose to a girl, those thoughts have to be positive. I'm the best. Always believe. See, you
And
always need to think whether you are on stage or
so I
anywhere
am the
else.
best. Not just I am the best. It also needs to involve I deserve it.
Yes. Yes,
Absolutely.
I'm the
Absolutely.
best and I'm ready to learn from others. If
Absolutely.
somebody teaches me something, I will learn. But I'm the best because
Absolutely.
right now, when I'm on the stage, I'm the king. And the king
Absolutely.
cannot fail. If that is the
Absolutely.
thought
That's very
process,
important.
you can really hit bang on and you can be successful. So, Michael, take care of it next time.
100%. Can I ask you, gentlemen, a quick question just regarding this being a
Sure.
powerful communicator in the office? Let's take it to the workplace. Could I ask you, gentlemen, what is your experience in being able to you want to have a difficult conversation with, let's say it is your, like Mr. Das had mentioned, the instance with a raise, or even I would like your either a raise or a promotion. I want to step up into a new job title. There's
Exactly.
now a vacancy in the company. Let's say a management position has opened up, and I think, okay, I think that I'm the suitable candidate for this. I believe it, but and I'm not prepared. I'm prepared for it. Here's X, Y, and Z of why I am. But now, obviously, the execution is in the how now. So how do I speak to this
Right.
person? What are the normal like pointers that you might have? Maybe the person, knowing who that person is, how what they respond to, they like their ego stroked first, or is there things that you guys might be able to give a bit of input there?
Can I probably target that question?
Please.
Okay, so here's the thing. The first thing is, if I may go back on this, you will obviously know. I mean, you also know. Everybody knows that when you're going in for an appraisal, you have filled up an appraisal form, right? An
Yes,
appraisal
yes.
form has certain questions which particularly says that what were your KRAs, which your key result areas, and what did you achieve out of those key result areas? What did you actually do in those KRAs, right? Now,
Mm.
when what we do is we oftentimes, most people who are sitting in their appraisal discussions, I have rarely seen anybody with a clear understanding and write up of what their KRAs are and what they have achieved out of those KRAs. And that's where the communication isn't clear from the very base of it.
Yeah.
Now, if the KRAs are not clear on what he has written, what were your KRAs, and what he has written about what he has achieved out of those KRAs, if his KRAs and if his achievements out of those KRAs are not clear, how do you expect the person asking for an appraisal to actually sit in front of his or her boss and say, "Hey, my boss, this is what I was expected to do. This is what I've done," because he's not even clear about it.
Yes. Good point.
Now, if I might go back and say that maybe it's a fault of the boss that the boss did not explain the KRAs clearly when it needed to be clear. Do you understand? So, for example, when I communicate, even when I'm communicating in public, what I do is I have this habit of, "Am I clear, ladies and gentlemen?" And I get this awesome, which gives me a high, very honestly, and I get this awesome, "Absolutely, Arnav." So I get this rush, which the audience gives me back. Yeah. So which basically means that they are connecting with what I'm saying. Do I make sense? How
Mm.
many times has your boss asked you, "Have you understood what I'm saying?" He hasn't. There's a communication gap.
Mm.
So whenever you speak, it is not just about speaking, but do you understand what I'm saying? Similarly,
Yeah.
when you listen, your most important part that you need to do is rephrase what you heard or listened to, let me put it. Rephrase what you listened to make sure that what you've understood is equal to what Michael said.
Very good points. Wow.
Because my understanding is from my perspective, being
Mm.
a person in Kolkata, in India, and the perspective of Michael is being Michael in South Africa, whose grounds are different, whose geography is different, whose political situation in the country is different. So his perspectives are different. So the way he says it, from the angle he says it, is different from what I understand. So what I need to do is when Michael says something, I need to perceive it and say, "Okay, so Michael, what you said is you want to go out for a coffee. Yeah, super. Let's go out for a coffee. Now that you've said that.
I
I
think
hope
what
that
I
makes sense.
I think
Love
what I
it.
could make out is like from all your insights, what is really important, because even I also have faced this situation at times when, you know, candidates are asking for a raise, or probably, I'm interviewing candidates, even Michael also has faced, and the candidate is trying to do a hard negotiation and he's trying to ask for a particular salary. So I think every time, whether you are asking for a job or you're asking for a pay raise or you're proposing a girl, what really matters, three things matters. I think first you have to be very authentic. Whatever is your proposal, your communication has to be authentic. It's something which is authentic.
Yeah.
Second,
Absolutely.
second is that whatever you are going to say, you should make sure that you articulate well whatever your content.
And you know what exactly you're saying. That's very
Or you
important.
exactly, you mean it. You just not you
You
say
mean
the
it.
word, you mean the word what you say.
Here's, I can I give an example here?
I just finished the third
I
E.
want to hear the
You
third
have to
one.
Please,
be
please, please.
the
Please.
third E is like you have to be audacious enough.
Oh, very much, very much.
If you are not doing this 3 years, I'm telling you, my friend, you will be never heard in your life. Because I remember
Absolutely.
the first TED speech which I went for, I was really having the typical, the butterfly effect, and I was really afraid. And it was during the last pandemic, and it was one of the most important professional event of my life. And the topic was given to me that how we really manage our people in the difficult times. So I was really having this, and I was thinking that what exactly will be the impact when I would be speaking, and it was all on ears. It was during pandemic time, and I remembered. So I just had an internal talk with myself. But I remembered that, as Mr. Joshi said, that I'm the king when you are on the dais, when you are on the podium, you are the boss.
Absolutely.
So I just asserted the same thing. I just tried to show myself that what I know, that's why I'm here, and that's why I've been called for this session. And I make sure that whatever I'm going to speak is going to be authentic, it's going to be really articulated well, and it is going to be making that noise by being audacious. So I always believe in
Absolutely.
that. So
Amazing.
I think we are
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
coming close to the end of the session. We have Julio with us. Julio, if you have any questions, Julio, if you would like to come for some questions. Julio?
No,
Yeah.
I don't have questions.
Yeah. Can you turn on your video if it's possible so that people can see you, Julio?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay. Good evening.
All right.
Good evening.
I don't have a question, but it was quite a learning session for me, and I really appreciate all your contribution, ideas shared, and life, not only professional but in life.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to all of you.
Yeah. Julio is from Guinea Conakry. Julio, you're from?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the extreme of the African map. It is just by the side of Atlantic.
At the West. Yes. West Africa.
West Africa. Thank you.
Today.
Thank you,
for
Julio.
joining us.
Thank you, Mr.
All right. So I would just go back to our speakers for their conclusion. So first, I would like to go to Michael, that what exactly he would like to say today, and how was his experience to participate in this webinar. And of course, would love to listen from you, Michael.
Firstly, thank you so much
Yeah.
to each one of you for just engaging with me today. What's so great about this kind of moment in life is that I get to sit here, and I've already gone away with two things. Number one, when I watch this video back, I'm going to see how fast I speak. It's not the first time this week someone has mentioned to me that I speak really fast and I need to slow it down.
That's not your fault. That's not your fault. It's actually where you're from.
Yeah.
South Africa, most people have this tendency of speaking very fast. And that kind of grips up when you're on stage or on video.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I've already picked up. Another was also keeping it short, keeping things short and sweet. Sometimes I divert and go into a few other topics, or I digress. So that's another thing that I learned, that was what you mentioned, Arnab. But just to end off here, just something that I made a note of that I wanted to just share with everybody, whoever might end up watching this, whether it's now or in a year or two to come. Improving communication is an ongoing process. And small, consistent efforts can lead to significant enhancements over time. And choosing a few of these strategies that resonate specifically with whichever individual is watching this, integrate those small nuggets into your life, and over time you'll improve. And just keep doing and keep trying, and be teachable. To after this call, maybe one or two of you might tell me, Mike, you were excellent, but X, Y, and Z, do this better. You'll be even better. And then I'm going to evolve and go better. That's what I had to communicate here with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would quickly go to Mr. Sanjit for his conclusion, sir.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful session, and I really enjoy it as much as you people enjoy it. The main thing is that, as Michael also said, that one can become good communicator, or any skill he or she can improve by doing the process or doing the things again and again.
Yes.
So keep on learning, keep on improving, and you'll start growing and growing and growing. So, and this platform is really wonderful. So people can learn a lot of things from here, and it's really wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your inputs. I would quickly go to our Vivek sir. Vivek sir, if you can just give your final words and conclusion for us. What would be the takeaway for us?
Privankar, it's a great experience. Seriously, it's always a wonderful experience to be associated with you. And today with Michael, Sanjeet, Arnab, Julio, I guess it was a wonderful experience. And believe me, for summarizing the entire thing, I don't want to say anything. I'm just going to read what Julio has written on the chat box, right? What Julio is saying is, if I can summarize this topic and adapt all of your advices and experience in context of my profession as a salesperson, continuous learning, preparation, and practicing are key to success beyond talent.
Absolutely.
It takes so many improvements to be done, like self-confidence, body language, diction, knowledge of the content, and the audience to make them interested.
Yeah.
I guess that's the gist. And Julio has really taken it up in such a beautiful manner that nothing else is for me to say as I'm reading out what Julio has written. Julio, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Julio.
A round of
Thank
applause.
you, Julio.
Thank you, Julio. Okay, so I would just like to go to Arnab sir. Arnab sir, what exactly are your final takeaway for our viewers who will be watching this session? So what you would like to say?
Well, I guess most of the people have actually put in very strong points for the viewers. But before we kind of conclude, there's one thing I would probably say, set aside your fear. The fear factor is within yourself. Set aside your fear, face it. The first time, I was actually talking to you, I was just telling you, Mr. Das, that I wanted to say something. But anyway, this is basically like, there was one scenario where I actually made a guy cry on stage because he had never ever spoken on stage in his life, And that first time he actually overcame that. The next time onwards, his HOD, this guy was in a college. He was a final year engineering student. The next session I went back, his HOD actually, the head of his department actually came back to me and said, Mr. Arnav, how did you manage to make this guy speak? Now he doesn't stop speaking. I haven't heard him speak for the last 3 years. So I said, I just broke his barrier.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So it's that the first time will be very difficult, The first time will be very difficult. I don't care. Go onto stage, cry if you have to, but force yourself to speak.
Yeah.
The next time onwards, you don't have to. It'll be smooth. Believe me. All the best.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your participation and insights, the knowledge which you have shared for our audience. I'm sure people would really take away these nuggets of communication. And as you all have said, that we are not perfect So we have to make sure that we have to go better by better, how we have to really keep on developing. And it's all about continuous practice. As Mr. Sanjit says, that practice becomes permanent. So we need to really keep on the journey of becoming better to the best. And how exactly we really go for this endeavor, that is important. We'll keep our discussion on through some new topics, new findings, new explorations in our upcoming webinar. And I'm sure I would be really gifted and always getting the support from you for this kind of participation in future as well. And I'm also very happy that today this topic is going to definitely help many such youngsters who are going to watch this video. Tomorrow we would be having a relayed telecast of the same video in my YouTube channel, and I'll be sharing the link with all of you so that if you can also pass on to so many needy people and interested people who can further propagate this knowledge and share their communication to people, because it's all about how we really intend, because it's always the intention which is ultimately important in life. So with this note, I really want that we should keep on this philanthropic gesture in spreading knowledge, inspiring people and motivating people for a good cause. Thank you so much for being this evening. Take care and have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.